What if I told you Florida is losing hundreds of millions of dollars every single year? Not to hurricanes, not to inflation, but to a hidden property tax scam most homeowners have never heard of. County audits and public records reveal a shocking truth. Up to 20% of homestead exemptions may be claimed illegally. That means while you're paying your full share, someone else is quietly paying less, and the system looks the other way. This is not a small loophole. It's a system-wide failure that drains money meant for schools, police, fire departments, and local infrastructure. Luxury homes are undervalued. Investors pretend to live in multiple properties, and shell companies hide real ownership. On paper, everything looks legal, but in reality, the burden shifts to honest homeowners like you. Experts now warn that if this fraud continues, Florida could face sudden tax hikes, aggressive reassessments, and financial shockwaves that hit without warning. So the real question is this: is Florida's property tax system about to collapse? Or has it already been hijacked? Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change how you see your home forever. Number 1. How the scam works. Florida's property tax fraud begins with a system that was built on trust, not suspicion, and that trust is now being abused on a massive scale. The biggest entry point is the Homestead Exemption, a benefit designed to protect people who genuinely live in their homes full-time. Instead, investors, landlords, and out-of-state owners often claim it illegally by declaring rental properties or vacation homes as their primary residence. This single false claim can reduce a tax bill by thousands of dollars every year. On the surface, it looks like harmless paperwork. In reality, it's intentional misrepresentation that quietly drains public money meant for everyone. The scam deepens through strategic undervaluation of properties, especially high-end and luxury homes. Florida relies on periodic assessments, but many expensive properties remain far below true market value for years. Some owners aggressively challenge assessments using lawyers and technical loopholes, while others benefit from delayed updates. Meanwhile, regular homeowners see their property taxes rise steadily. Here's the key problem: when wealthy properties underpay, the system doesn't absorb the loss, it shifts it. That gap is filled by higher rates spread across ordinary homeowners, creating a slow but relentless financial squeeze on working families. The most sophisticated layer of this fraud involves hiding who really owns and lives in a property. Homes are placed under LLCs, trusts, or proxy names, making it extremely difficult for county tax offices to verify eligibility for exemptions. Enforcement agencies are often understaffed and rely on outdated systems, giving fraudsters a clear advantage. They know the odds of being caught are low and the rewards are high. Over time, these hidden abuses add up to hundreds of millions in lost revenue, weakening schools, emergency services, and local infrastructure. This is why experts warn Florida isn't facing random abuse, it's facing a systemic failure. And unless it's fixed, honest homeowners will continue paying the price for someone else's deception. Number 2. Who is benefiting? Florida's property tax fraud doesn't happen by accident. It benefits specific groups, and that's why it continues. The biggest winners are large investors, wealthy second homeowners, and professional landlords who understand how to work the system. By falsely claiming exemptions or keeping properties undervalued, they save thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars every year. For them, this isn't a mistake, it's a calculated strategy. While ordinary homeowners follow the rules, these players quietly bend them, knowing enforcement is slow and penalties are rare. Another group benefiting from this broken system is corporate property holders and shell entities. When homes are registered under LLCs, trusts, or layered ownership structures, accountability becomes blurred. These setups make it extremely difficult for tax authorities to determine who actually lives in the property, or if anyone does at all. This legal fog creates a perfect hiding place for abuse. The system ends up favoring those who can afford lawyers, accountants, and tax specialists, while everyday homeowners lack the time, money, or knowledge to challenge unfair assessments. The most disturbing part is that the cost of these benefits doesn't disappear. It's quietly transferred. When fraudsters pay less, counties still need the same revenue to operate. That shortfall gets spread across the rest of the population due to higher tax rates, increased assessments, and reduced exemptions. In simple terms, honest homeowners are subsidizing dishonest ones. Seniors on fixed incomes, first-time buyers, and middle-class families end up paying more year after year, often without understanding why. This is why experts warn that unchecked property tax fraud doesn't just reward bad actors, it punishes compliance. And when following the rules becomes more expensive than breaking them, the entire system moves closer to collapse. Number 3. Why the system is failing. Florida's property tax system isn't failing because officials don't care. It's failing because it was never designed to handle this level of abuse. County property appraiser offices rely heavily on self-reported information, limited audits, and periodic reviews. With Florida's explosive population growth and constant real estate turnover, these offices are overwhelmed. The volume of properties has increased dramatically, but staffing, technology, and enforcement tools have not kept pace. This creates massive blind spots where fraud can thrive undetected for years. Another major weakness is outdated assessment and tracking systems. Many counties still depend on fragmented databases that don't communicate efficiently with other agencies. That means exemptions, ownership changes, and residency status are often verified slowly or not at all. Fraudsters understand this gap very well. They know that by the time inconsistencies are flagged, years of underpaid taxes may have already passed. Even when fraud is discovered, penalties are often too small to deter repeat abuse, making it a low-risk, high-reward strategy. The final and most dangerous failure is political and structural pressure. Aggressively enforcing property tax rules is unpopular, especially in a state where low taxes are a major political promise. As a result, enforcement is often cautious, selective, or delayed. Instead of fixing the leak, the system quietly compensates by raising assessments and spreading costs across compliant homeowners. This keeps the budget balanced in the short term but accelerates long-term instability. Experts warn that when enforcement collapses and trust erodes, the system doesn't fail overnight. It slowly breaks from the inside. And by the time homeowners feel the full impact, the damage is already done. Number 4. The hidden impact on homeowners. Most Florida homeowners don't realize they're already being affected by property tax fraud because the damage is quiet and gradual, not sudden and obvious. When fraudsters avoid paying their fair share, counties don't immediately announce a crisis. Instead, the system compensates by raising assessments, tightening exemptions, and increasing overall tax pressure on those who remain compliant. Homeowners open their tax bill each year and assume the increase is normal, never suspecting they're covering the cost of someone else's deception. The impact is especially severe for seniors, fixed-income households, and first-time buyers. Seniors who planned their retirement around stable housing costs suddenly face rising taxes they can't easily absorb. Young families stretching to afford their first home find that ownership becomes more expensive every year, not because their income increased, but because the system is leaking money elsewhere. Over time, this creates housing insecurity, forcing some homeowners to sell earlier than planned or take on debt just to stay in their homes. Beyond individual households, entire communities suffer. Reduced or unstable tax revenue leads to underfunded schools, slower emergency response times, and delayed infrastructure repairs. Roads deteriorate, class sizes grow, and local services weaken, yet the root cause remains hidden. This is why experts call property tax fraud a silent community tax. Everyone pays it, but almost no one sees it listed on their bill. If this pattern continues unchecked, the long-term consequence isn't just higher taxes, it's a loss of confidence in the fairness of the entire system, pushing Florida closer to a breaking point. Number 5. Warning signs a crash is coming. One of the clearest warning signs that Florida's property tax system is under stress is the sudden spike in reassessments and audits across certain counties. When governments realize revenue is leaking, they don't fix the root problem immediately. They react. That reaction often comes in the form of aggressive reassessments, surprise audits, and retroactive corrections. For homeowners, this can feel like an overnight shock. A house that was stable for years suddenly jumps in value on paper, triggering unexpected tax increases with little explanation. These sharp corrections are often a sign that officials are scrambling to plug holes that should never have existed. Another red flag is the growing use of blanket policy changes instead of targeted enforcement. Instead of identifying fraudsters precisely, counties may tighten rules for everyone, making exemptions harder to qualify for, increasing documentation requirements, or reducing benefits altogether. This approach punishes honest homeowners first because they're visible and compliant. Fraudsters, hidden behind complex ownership structures, often slip through again. When systems start relying on broad pressure rather than precision, it usually means control is already slipping. The final and most dangerous signal is public trust erosion. When homeowners feel the system is unfair, when they believe the rules only apply to people without lawyers, or money compliance begins to drop, people stop appealing honestly, stop reporting issues, and start looking for ways to protect themselves. Economists and public finance experts agree on one thing: tax systems collapse when trust collapses. Not with one dramatic event, but through slow disengagement. If Florida continues down this path, leaks ignored, pressure shifted, trust weakened. The result won't just be higher bills. It will be a structural breakdown where emergency fixes replace long-term solutions. And once a system reaches that stage, the crash isn't sudden, it's inevitable. Number 6. What experts are quietly warning. Behind closed doors, economists, auditors, and public finance experts are raising serious red flags about Florida's property tax system. But most homeowners never hear these warnings. Internal reports and financial models show that even small levels of widespread fraud can create massive long-term damage. When unpaid taxes compound year after year, the system becomes dependent on constant increases just to stay functional. Experts describe this as a slow-moving financial imbalance, one that doesn't explode immediately but quietly weakens the foundation until corrective action becomes unavoidable and painful. Another concern experts highlight is data distortion. When thousands of properties are improperly assessed or falsely exempted, counties lose the ability to accurately forecast revenue. Budgets are built on flawed numbers, leading to misallocated funds and emergency shortfalls. This forces governments to rely on short-term fixes instead of long-term planning. According to public finance research, systems operating under distorted data are far more likely to resort to sudden tax hikes, rushed reassessments, and reactive enforcement. These moves stabilize budgets temporarily but increase instability for homeowners. The most alarming warning is about behavioral fallout. Experts agree that when compliant taxpayers repeatedly absorb the cost of fraud, compliance itself begins to erode. People stop trusting assessments. Appeals skyrocket, reporting drops. Some homeowners start asking a dangerous question: why should I follow the rules if others don't? Once that mindset spreads, enforcement becomes exponentially harder and more expensive. Economists call this the compliance tipping point, the moment a tax system shifts from cooperative to adversarial. Experts warn that Florida is approaching that line. If enforcement remains weak and fraud continues unchecked, recovery won't be simple. It will require mass audits, legal crackdowns, and painful corrections that hit homeowners first. This is why specialists say the biggest risk isn't fraud alone, it's waiting too long to stop it. Number 7. What homeowners can do right now. The most important step homeowners can take is awareness, because this scam thrives on people assuming everything is normal. Start by reviewing your annual property tax assessment carefully instead of ignoring it. Compare your home's assessed value with similar homes in your neighborhood, not just last year's bill. If your value keeps rising while nearby properties stay unusually low, that's a clear warning sign. Many homeowners never question this difference, but asking one simple question, why am I paying more than comparable homes, can reveal serious inconsistencies. The next step is verification. Check the exemptions listed on your property record and make sure they are accurate and up to date. If your situation has changed, such as moving, renting part of the home, or using its seasonally incorrect exemptions could eventually trigger penalties or back taxes. At the same time, homeowners can legally and anonymously report suspicious properties that appear vacant, rented, or owned by investors but still claim resident benefits. This isn't about targeting neighbors. It's about protecting fairness in a system where abuse raises costs for everyone else. Finally, homeowners should prepare for potential system corrections. Experts warn that when enforcement finally tightens, it often comes fast and wide. Keep records, save assessment notices, and document improvements or damages to your property. If reassessments surge, being organized can protect you from unfair spikes. Just as important, stay informed and engaged. Systems only change when public pressure grows. When homeowners speak up, appeal unfair valuations, and demand transparency, fraud becomes harder to hide. The key message is simple but powerful. Doing nothing is no longer neutral. In a system under strain, silence helps fraud grow, but informed homeowners can slow it down before the damage becomes permanent. Number 8. What happens if nothing changes? If Florida's property tax fraud continues unchecked, the first consequence won't be dramatic headlines. It will be quiet normalization of unfairness. Homeowners will keep seeing gradual increases and assume it's inflation or market growth. Over time, these small increases stack up, turning homeownership into a heavier financial burden. The danger is that people adapt instead of questioning it. When unfair costs become routine, pressure builds invisibly, and by the time it's noticed, reversing it becomes far more difficult. The next phase is institutional reaction, and this is where real shock begins. Counties facing growing revenue gaps will be forced to act fast. That usually means mass reassessments, tighter exemption rules, and retroactive corrections. These measures don't target fraud precisely, they target everyone at once. Honest homeowners who follow the rules suddenly face steep tax jumps. Appeals processes become overloaded, and legal disputes surge. This kind of reactive enforcement doesn't restore trust, it damages it further, making homeowners feel punished for compliance. The final outcome is the most dangerous: system fatigue and disengagement. When people believe a system is unfair, they stop cooperating with it. Appeals become defensive instead of factual. Reporting drops. Compliance weakens. Economists warn that tax systems fail not when money runs out, but when public trust collapses. At that point, governments rely on emergency fixes instead of sustainable solutions, and every correction becomes more painful than the last. If Florida reaches this stage, recovery won't be simple or quick. It will require years of audits, legal action, and political fallout. And during that time, homeowners carry the weight. This is why experts say the real risk isn't just fraud, it's delay. Because when problems are ignored long enough, the cost of fixing them becomes far greater than the cost of preventing them. Number 9. Why this affects everyone, not just Florida. Many people assume this is a Florida-only problem, but experts warn that what's happening here is a warning signal for other states watching closely. Florida is often used as a model for low-tax, high-growth housing policy. When fraud becomes normalized in such a system, it sends the wrong message nationwide, that rules can be bent without consequences. If this approach spreads or is copied, without fixes, the same weaknesses could appear elsewhere, multiplying the damage beyond one state. There's also a broader economic ripple effect. Property taxes help stabilize local economies, especially during downturns. When that foundation weakens, governments rely more heavily on fees, fines, and indirect taxes to make up the difference. These costs don't feel like taxes, but they hit daily life: higher utility fees, permit costs, insurance pressures, and service cuts. In other words, even renters and seasonal residents eventually feel the strain. What starts as property tax fraud quietly expands into a cost of living issue. Finally, this situation exposes a deeper issue: fairness erosion. When people believe systems only work for those with money, lawyers, or influence, trust collapses, not just in taxation but in governance itself. Civic participation drops. Transparency feels pointless. Experts emphasize that tax systems survive not because they are perfect, but because most people believe they are fair enough to follow. Once that belief cracks, rebuilding it is extremely difficult. That's why Florida's property tax problem matters far beyond state lines. It's not just about homes or bills. It's about whether public systems can still function when fairness is no longer guaranteed. Number 10. What must happen next? If Florida wants to avoid a full-scale breakdown of its property tax system, change cannot be cosmetic. It has to be structural. Experts agree the first step is targeted enforcement, not blanket pressure. That means investing in modern data systems that can cross-check residency, ownership structures, and exemption claims in real time. When fraud is identified quickly and penalties are meaningful, abuse drops fast. The goal isn't to punish homeowners. It's to restore balance so honest taxpayers aren't carrying the weight of bad actors. The second requirement is transparency and accountability. Homeowners need clearer explanations of how assessments are calculated and why changes happen. When people understand the process, trust improves. Counties that publish audit results, fraud recoveries, and exemption reviews openly tend to see higher voluntary compliance. Experts in public finance stress that secrecy protects fraud, while transparency discourages it. If homeowners can see that enforcement is fair and consistent, the system regains credibility instead of fear. Finally, the most important change is public engagement. No tax system survives on enforcement alone. It survives because people believe participation is fair and necessary. That means homeowners staying informed, questioning unusual assessments, and demanding oversight without panic or misinformation. Policymakers, on the other hand, must resist short-term political comfort and address long-term stability. Ignoring the problem may feel easier today, but it guarantees harsher corrections tomorrow. Experts are clear on this point. Florida still has time to fix the cracks before they become fractures. But that window is narrowing. If action is delayed any longer, recovery won't be measured in months. It will be measured in years of financial strain, legal conflict, and public distrust. This is the final crossroads. What happens next will determine whether Florida's property tax system is repaired responsibly or forced to reset the hard way. If you've ever opened your property tax bill and felt something didn't add up, Tell us in the comments your story could help expose what numbers can't. If this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Watch our previous video where we uncovered another hidden system most homeowners never question. We put countless hours of research and effort into bringing you the truth others avoid. Your support truly matters. So please subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it helps us keep exposing what affects your home, your money, and your future.